Good morning, everybody. This is our first ever, what was supposed to be a live broadcast, but now it's a live recording. Good morning, Justice.
Good morning, Six. Besides the technical difficulties, how are you doing?
It's all technical issues right now, but I'm doing okay.
Good.
We are pretty excited to announce this neat little thing that Pretty in the Algorithm is. Wow, I can't even talk yet this morning. That Pretty in the Algorithm is producing. Justice and I will be ideally live every day around 9:30 with the Hypnic Jerks show. So today we had some stuff prepped just in case there was some technical difficulties, which there was. So you may have noticed a few live streams kind of going out and then getting cut off and going out and getting cut off. But we were starting with an awesome band. So Justice, why don't you intro what we are going to start with?
Absolutely. So our guest today is our old friend Vanden Berghe, and we actually met doing his show, the AVBpodcast, and one of the first episodes that Six and I ever did together was a breakfast with the band with this band, the Pindles. So this is their song Radio that we recorded with them at Langman HVAC.
And it's just Pindles. Know that, remember?
Oh, I didn't.
Well, now we do, and knowing's half the battle.
Hey, we're Pindles, and this song's called Radio.
Late night drive, taking her home, reading her lips, but I should have my eyes on the road. I thought tonight I'd sleep in a room. This can't be true. Traffic jam, I can't pull over, and I can't stand to look over my shoulder. And then what she said came out of the blue. It must be true. I heard it on the radio. Thought you were smarter than that. It's on the radio. Thought you were smarter than that. At the night, light of the moon, I hear her say, I'm falling out of love with you. She took my hand and sounded familiar. Ooh, I open day, I hear you on the radio. Thought you were smarter than that. It's on the radio. Thought you were smarter than that. Goodbye, I'll try to find music in everything. If you hear it on the radio, thought you were smarter than that. It's on the radio, thought you knew me better than that. It's on the radio. Thought you were smarter than that. It's on the radio. Thought you were smarter than that.
All right, so now we're back live-ish with AJ.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing very, very well, considering everything. We just
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, let me stop on you. I know you're going to do a big intro and stuff, but as is my habit, let me stop you before you even get started. We were just talking before we even got going about how amazing that Pindles video is, and I was thinking just as we were coming live, the two standouts of all the videos that we did together, because I mean, we're going to get into all of this, but people should know that video that was just played was put on my show, but it was shot by all of us when we were working together a couple of years ago. And the two major standouts, and I mean, I loved every music video that we put out, but the two major standouts to me that just kind of blew my mind were that Pindles video and the one we did for Fat Moth, where we're just like, they, by far in my mind, they just stand so far out.
You know, I've rewatched a few. Fat Moth has ended up in my AVB playlist. I have one on my YouTube. So when I get into like doing things in the morning that don't take me doing any editing or sound, that there's great music. It's local, and it kind of gives me that nice little warm nostalgic feeling of something that we did, something we produced, and you're just like, man, we had something to do with that. Justice, are there any that kind of stand out in your head from the AVB?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Pindles, obviously, there's a reason we chose that one, being one of my personal favorites. And I think as well, the Love Razor video that we did was just a great one. With so fun.
Falling off the ceiling.
Yeah. I still have a little bit of a chunk of plaster from your brother's studio wall that Love Razor rocked up.
Yeah.
In that video, I think it's not in a shot that we used, that it should have been. A piece of plaster fell from the ceiling, hit the base, and exploded. Oh man, I was talking to Derek Impens before I hopped on call with you guys here, and we were reminiscing a little bit about how good it felt to do shoot days.
Shoot days were I was just talking. Who was I? I was either talking to, I think it was either Chris Merritt or George Mannery I was talking to within the last week or two or whatever, and I said to him the same thing I used to say to you guys every day, like, I don't give a fuck what we're doing. Shoot days are the best days.
Yeah.
No matter what's happening, no matter how shitty it got, when people no-showed us and we were up till 3 in the morning and then up at 6 a.m. to get into the studio, and Derek and I sleeping on top of each other until people showed up. It was still the best fun. Shoot days, production days to me are always the best days.
Yeah, so let's, recap. It's not like anyone from Windsor honestly doesn't kind of know this, the podcast or of the AVB, but hopefully we do get some viewers that are out from Vancouver and some of my friends that are all around. The AVB was set up as a long format discussion between AJ and a guest, and again, the format, or I guess the guests ranged from anything, and that's what was really interesting about it. And then when I moved back from Vancouver and we kind of got together and I had a bunch of cameras and AJ had been recording, we decided to do some band days and do some recordings of bands. And that quickly ramped up, and then we ended up with literally an amazing production team behind AJ and then just myself with the cameras. And we can go back to the AVB, or you should go back to the AVB.com, because all those videos that we did with bands are all up there. All the band ones are up there. There's a couple of full-length interviews that we all did together, as well. But I think most of the interviews that we ended up doing ended up getting pieced out and put on Facebook. So I don't have all of the full-length interviews there. I know once we kind of went on our own directions, all of my interviews, all the interviews that I was doing on my own, the full length of those are up. But I think there's 4 or 5 of the full-length ones that we all did together. You can kind of tell because it's the background is very distinct. All of the music videos that we shot together and all of the interviews that we did together are in that studio that was falling apart, and now looks beautiful when you drive by. It's all painted up in rainbows and shit, which as nice as it is, makes me sad every time I drive past it, because I just remember every conversation we had driving when we walk in there was like, yep, we're not touching this at all. This is perfect. No, I mean,
the grunge was perfect.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, it definitely gave its own flair, and it was so awesome that we did that in black and white, and it was so textured, and it was better than having your own like kind of studio setup, because nobody had a rundown room that looked like that.
No.
Yeah, no. There was a lot of magic happening. Sorry, go ahead, Justice.
No, I just because Ryan was even doing a little bit of work sort of behind the scenes, like between us recording, right? Because we were just sort of in there as a secondary project. But it was sort of beautiful to watch that wood wall sort of go up in the background, right? From the particle board, because I know the first couple bands we recorded were on the particle board, but then slowly over time it gets wood. It's very cool.
Yeah, no, it was fun. I remember the day we came in and got all excited because Ryan had ran heat.
You know,
Oh, yeah, I got
to speak to that, we actually had Dano on a live stream on
that's
Wednesday, and we ran into the same sort of problem where we were running into some technical stuff and he couldn't get stuff to us. So we again ran the My Son the Hurricane video that we did with the AVB. And again, big shout out to you, and we gave a shout out to the show, and we said to Dano, what was it like doing that? And he goes, I remember that day being very cold. Very,
There are
very,
some really
very
great
cold.
photos of Derek doing sound bundled
All
up
bundled
in like
up?
2 days. Yeah.
Yeah. So AJ,
It's
now that
funny. Oh yeah. Go ahead.
now that you aren't, with the big group, you aren't in a location. You were doing some AVB on the road. What are you doing with the AVB now? What's kind of going on?
To be perfectly honest with you, that's a good question. It's a question that I've sort of been dancing with even in my own head. I enjoy the conversations. I continue to have those kinds of conversations. As you guys well know, the conversations that I end up having on camera are just reflections of the same kind of conversations that I had in my day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the entire point of the whole show from the very beginning. Was to just translate these conversations that I have with creative people and give an outlet to them so that other people who are coming up and interested in being creative can sort of get the philosophy behind it. It's really tough to sort of talk about the reasons behind the show and the stuff that we did, but ultimately for me, it was always a philosophy show. It was always like a philosophy of art show. Mm-hmm. And I continue to sort of to try to find ways to do that. I'm working on a lot of different projects with a lot of different people. And each one of those projects is just as kind of another outlet with that. I've spent less time focusing on the show itself. I think we've only put out 2 episodes this year, which you guys know well, for me is not happening.
Well,
I moved on these things. Like when we started with these, it was 1 a week, no matter what. I still tell stories to people about having a realization as we were rushing into Christmas going, fuck, we need one out next week, and then there's the one after, and we got Christmas to worry about, and we got dinner, and then it was like, oh yeah, maybe just it's Christmas, and you don't have to fucking do this every second of every day, right? So for me to take the time away and just step back from it a little bit has been refreshing, rewarding. It gave me perspective that I wasn't having. But the other thing that it really did for me is that I kind of realized, and it's weird, it's like a running theme with the art in my life, but I don't know if you guys are aware, some people are, if you've seen it or not, but I had a really cool opportunity last year. We got invited, Dirks and I got invited to Vanilla Ice's house.
Yes.
And it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. Say what you will about Vanilla Ice and his career or whatever. What I learned from that experience was just what a tremendous worker and human being that guy is, and how down to earth and how sort of how mellow he really was. And I asked him in the interview a question about the whole Biggie Smalls incident. It's something if you are of my age or whatever, you kind of already know the story. Biggie Smalls was fabled to have held Vanilla Ice off a balcony and forced him to sign a contract. And all of that stuff. And I kind of asked him about it, not wanting to go into the details of it, but just kind of to get his reaction to, how do you walk away from that situation? What is your headspace? And his answer to me was, it's just business, man. Nobody held me off a balcony. You don't have to be held off a balcony to figure out what the baddest motherfucker in the room means when he looks at you and says, sign the contract. You didn't have to be held off the balcony. But when I walked out, nothing was different. I didn't know how many that points were or whatever. And when he said that to me, it put a lot of perspective as completely different and distant to anything that I was doing. It put a real perspective around what I was doing and what I was chasing. And the idea being that, that isn't everything there is. That it doesn't matter how good or how bad it goes or whatever. We're just out here doing the stuff that we do, and the next day is going to be the next day no matter what. And I don't know, for good or bad or whatever, for me, it sort of took that, it put me in a place where that drive to do it all the time and constantly went away, and sort of just put me in a position where I'm more interested in just creating stuff. I've been blessed, throughout this experience to run into a lot of different people that throw me a bunch of different opportunities, and I just want to take them as often as I can. So to answer my long-winded way of answering very simple questions is what's continuing with the AVB. I'm not sure. There's always going to be something that comes up there. I have some ideas for personal projects that I think are going to start to translate on there, and I've just been spending time kind of taking my experience over the last 4 years and sharing around, because as you guys are well aware, content creators now are kind of finding these mediums. You know, the shit that we've been playing with now for 4 years or whatever. There's a bunch of other people that are kind of coming on and going, oh, maybe this is a real thing. It's not just those fucking assholes running around with their bullshit.
I think that that's something I want to kind of hats off a little bit. Like when we joined the AVB, we both jumped in kind of both feet to something that we really, technically, I don't think technologically we were ready to do everything that we did on the schedule that we did. And I learned a lot of video workflow. I was able to test a lot with my videos. That podcast over that time was not only interesting to sit down for some of those conversations, but for me, again, as a personal project for me, was something that taught me all of these skills now, like you just said, where companies are realizing that they got to uptake these kind of ideas in order to move forward or get information out or, basically connect with their community and with their people. And now everybody is kind of grabbing onto it, and it's a little bit easier, it's a little bit more accessible. So we are seeing more of this stuff happening. And I'm very, very grateful for the technology that I learned when we were messing with the AVB.
I also think that sorry, I'm so sorry. I just think that what you started, AJ, and this sort of community oriented kind of content is I don't want to say it's new, but it was just sort of on the edge enough, especially in this area, that now that the world is ended, and when we all come back, it feels like we're all gonna wanna stay local, and this sort of hyper localized ideal is being pushed forward by some marketing people that we've talked to, and we think that you were even ahead of the curve of that, just sort of being so Windsor centric and really giving a shit about a place that not a lot of people seem to.
I love the city of Windsor, and I I have very little perspective on what people think of me outside of me. I have a very, very hard time translating that translating that back to myself and sort of having a perspective on that. I don't know, because look, I walk, as you guys probably are well aware, I walk through my life basically thinking of myself as an asshole all the time. And I don't mean like a mean asshole. I'm just like an idiot bumping my way through fucking walls. And I prove to myself over and over and over again just how true that is. So I appreciate, thank you. Thank you for the compliment. And I do appreciate it. And I do take pride in the idea that this is the sort of thing that I think about, right? A business partner of mine were kind of on the cutting edge of the local news stuff. We started one of the first websites that did that. I was kind of on the cutting edge. We were on the cutting edge of the podcasting, local podcasting. We weren't the first people to podcast, but we also weren't the first people to focus it locally. But I mean, for Windsor, I think we were doing something that was new, right? Yeah. And I think that's the part that's most important to me. Ultimately, I'm a creator. Yeah. And it's really hard to talk about that stuff. Like Six, I know you consider yourself a photographer, right? And
for a while,
at some point in my life, you're right, yeah. And at some point in my life, I considered myself a photographer. But then I walk through this world that I'm in, and I look around, and I'm constantly reminded by the people that I have in my life, the different ways people look at me. People look at me as a photographer. People look at me as the podcast guy. People look at me as the musician. I have people that know me as the poker guy. And it's, I don't know. I think that's more important than we've come up. We have been brought up to think of branding and sort of think about the way that people focus on you and what you do having to be properly packaged in a way that they can understand. And I'm just getting to the point where I don't fucking care about any of that anymore. I just want to go and do shit. And if you like what I do, come on board, watch, be a part of it for a short period, a long period. I don't fucking care, but this is what we're doing. You guys have seen the good and the bad side of that. I don't fucking claim to be that this is some altruistic fucking whatever. I'm insane. I'm tough to deal with, but you're gonna have a good time if you come along. You know what I mean? Like
there's a few things I want to unpack there though. Just one second, AJ. Like number one, we all wear some different hats, and it is kind of crazy when, you know, I look back through my life, photography has been one of the things that kind of is obviously a good steady. But,
sure.
You know, after a long period of time of just doing just producing, there comes a point afterwards where you're kind of just okay with the fact that you're just producing. And you're not trying to like reach the record deal or reach the this or reach the that. You have your own kind of, and I wouldn't say agenda, but it's almost your own identity through it. And the discussions with people, this stuff isn't really it's not gonna die. People want to talk to people. People want to listen to people talking to people.
That part I completely agree with. The part I disagree with it is the part where the production starts to become a thing where, you know, oh, this is just what we're doing. It did for me, and it does for me to a certain extent. And when I was running, it never did when we were working on it together, because you guys were handling most of the production stuff and I was handling the sort of like pulling it together shit. When we sort of went on our own ways and I kind of took on all of that, right? Like so when you guys started doing what you were doing and I went on my own, I just kind of took all of those roles. Like the show didn't lose anything. It just kind of it all came back on me. And I was okay with that. Like obviously there was things that needed to be switched, and you know there was lessons that had to be learned, and you know whatever, all of those pieces, and that was fine, and I was okay with that, and that was actually exciting to me. Like that part of like that it's that, you know, the shiny new toy, for lack of a better term.
To learn. I mean, it was learning. It is learning. So yeah.
Yeah, but then I get to a point, and this is a regular pattern throughout my life. It's kind of the reason why I have all of these different things in my life. I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I get it now. Now what? And I'm just, when it becomes factory work, I'm done. Yep. Like when it just becomes like, oh, okay, every day I get up and it's 8 o'clock and this is what I got to do, I'm fucking out. I have no interest in that. That's not who I am. That's not what I do. And, again, viewpoints on it will vary, but for me, I have no piece of that. It's automatically my mind wanders over to the next thing.
So, Justice, you want to jump in? I got a question though. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know. Like I there's still sort of like a nostalgia and a little bit of guilt, at least for sort of how I left. Like I'm not super stoked about how all of that went down, but it is what it is. And I think that coming back to it now and like coming back to Windsor, my plan was never to come back to Windsor. Like when I left the podcast, my plan was
I always forget that. I fucking forget that you were like, when you were out the door, you were just out the door. You were fucking out the door.
Yeah. Justice has left the building.
But in returning to Windsor and being a little more forced to sort of stay put, I have learned that like that reaction, like that running away, that chasing that thing that I thought I was chasing was less about the chase and more about the running. And so when you talk about well, like when things become factory work or when they become just not interesting anymore, your brain's on to the next thing. I relate very, very heavily because the second something becomes work, I'm like, what? This isn't this is no longer what I do to take off work. So I'm
yeah. So
but that's.
Sorry, I'm gonna jump in here.
No, nothing. That's it's.
So. AJ, what are you doing? I mean, now you're not on a stage anywhere. Your guitar's not in your hand. You're not in a studio. You're in a damn truck. Could you please explain?
Yep.
Kind of what's going on, just a little bit.
Sure. I mean, truck driving was always my thing to fall back on, and I've fallen back on it over and over again in my life. I'm either lucky enough, smart enough, or stupid enough. And all of those apply. to have my hands in a bunch of different baskets. And it kind of goes back, like, mentally, I put myself in a place about 6 or 7 years ago for those people who don't know, I used to weigh over 500 pounds, and I went and had gastric bypass surgery and kind of put that together. And in order for me to get into a mental headspace to do that, I just kind of put, the thought in my head was just that it doesn't matter what's going to happen. I can survive. I can get through anything. There's nothing you can throw at me that I can't survive. And I honestly mean that. I don't care what the situation is. I don't like the higher the stress level for me, the more calm I get anymore. I only tend to panic and fucking jump around and get angry when things are simple, stupid.
You got to reinvent that wheel to make it exciting, eh?
Yeah, pretty much. You know what I mean? But like,
we experienced a little of that.
What's that?
I said we experienced a little of that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do things of. I don't know. The problem is, again, I have my perspective on everything, and I don't necessarily know that my perspective is accurate. Right? So I remember the emotions that I have through stuff more than I remember the details. Yeah. So yeah, you're probably right. I'm sure a lot of it was me because a lot of this stuff, and you know, this is another real point of it too that is really hard to talk about when it comes to creativity. This is obviously, we're completely off the topic of the truck. I'm in the truck to pay my bills. That's the simple. But one of the things that doesn't get talked about enough when it comes to creativity and sort of the philosophy of creativity is probably how difficult it is to find your way in it. And like we experienced some of that stuff with us working as a group. I experienced some of that stuff working in a team recently that just at the last hour turned to fucking shit. And it. Oh, sorry, I don't know about languages.
The emotion, like hearing you talk about a team that just at the midnight hour falls apart. I know that feeling. That sucks.
Oh yeah. No. And it's, you know, you work your ass off on something and then basically get slapped for it. And it's like, okay, you know, like I can take this and you know, sit in my room and be depressed, which is kind of what I did for the last week and a half or whatever. You can get off your ass and go do what you got to do. And like, ultimately, that's just what you have to do no matter what. Sorry, I got like messages coming up and now I'm hitting my phone and things.
That's all right. We are just about hitting our kind of 30-minute limit.
Oh shit! Yeah, there you go.
I have one quick question, Justice. Do you have anything before I kind of?
I guess the biggest thing that I would want to ask is like, are you? Like, in retrospect, are you happy with how it went down, with how everything played out? Like, do you feel good about the thing that we did together?
Oh, with AVB?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, look, there is, and I'll take my glasses off for this one so you can see my eyes and know my sincerity and all the other fucking bullshit techniques that we both know. Here's the God's honest truth about everything I do. I don't walk away from any project happy. Because any project that I go into, I expect to last forever. Even though I know damn well that that's not the case. So I think I'm going to answer both the question that you asked and the question that you meant to ask. I fucking love you guys. There's no part of me that doesn't love you guys. When I look back on the history of the AVB podcast, are there things that I point at and go, well, that fucking sucks? Yep. Yeah. And I do that for my whole life. Yeah, and that doesn't change the fact that the people that have been involved in all of that were fucking amazing. If I didn't love you guys and I didn't really care about what we were doing, we wouldn't have done it. I only put my effort into shit that matters to me. And despite the fact that I can be sad and angry and all of the other stupid emotions when it's not happening anymore, this is what life is. This is what life is. This is what being a creative is. It's connecting yourself with the most interesting people on the planet, spending as much time as you can with them, and then being frustrated as fuck when you can't anymore. And we're all a bunch of fucking nutcases. Yeah. We're all crazy. Yeah. We're all like, if you weren't crazy to begin with, we wouldn't get along.
You work yourself into it pretty quick. All right. So this dovetails all of this, and in the middle of all this COVID and pandemic, and you being a creative, what are you doing to stay inspired and to be inspired during this time? What is it that you're seeking out?
It's funny because I've kind of been in the opposite. I had a bunch of stuff thrown at me at the beginning of this. Like the project that I'm talking about sort of hit me just as the shutdown was coming down.
Yeah.
So I got sucked into that and just sort of focused on that. And then the last 2 weeks or week and a half or whatever, I've sort of just been kind of recuperating from that. But I think the answer to your question is it's all like there's whatever is happening every day is some sort of inspired. Like there's something in front of us every single day, and it's a matter of can you get your mind outside of all of the other things, all of the other I know I spend time going just going, I have nothing to focus on. I have nothing, like I can't lock my mind into stuff. And the truth is that's your mind telling you it can't concentrate on anything right now. It needs to rest. At least it is for me.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I get that rest in, I play video games. I sit outside on my porch and smoke weed, whatever it is. Just do whatever I got to do to get through that sort of that period, because I finally, after years and years of dealing with this, realized that that's my worst time. When I don't have something specific to focus on, my mind starts jumping, and it's when I react to that all the trouble starts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of like, okay, when I'm in that space, taking a breath. George Mannery, I don't know if you guys know George or not, but George has been doing these, George is a very, very good friend of mine. The guy was a hero of mine.
Yeah.
Right? The guy was a hero of mine growing up as a musician, and him and I got an opportunity to become very close recently. Mm-hmm. And he's been doing these like 1 minute videos every day or a couple of times a day, where he's just talking about getting through his dealing with bipolar disorder and all of the things that he talks about, all of the things that he's saying there about just sort of like just accepting the crazy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm paraphrasing that. That's not his words, but like to me, that's really what it is. Like we're all fucking insane. We're all insane in some degree, and some of us to a little more than others. And if you can sort of like, if you can accept that about yourself and just go, okay, this is how I focus it, and this is where it creates problems for me. Yeah. Try to categorize that and lock it in. All right, there's the bell. I guess dinner's done.
Yeah, we're just kind of hitting that time, and I'm really happy that you kind of helped us segue into the fact that I hope to have George Mannery on this show. We hope to get people within our community, people that I've been inspired by, because like you say, it's really nice. You catch George, it's 1 or 2 minutes. He tells you about some music that's in the background, a great fact about a band you've probably never heard of, or maybe you have, and then he talks really about the here and now and a very much a Buddhist kind of approach to it. So I want to have people on here to kind of talk about how they're going through stuff, and I want to thank you for being the first person on this little endeavor of ours, the Hypnic Jerks. It's nice to know that you're healthy, you're well, and that the extra hats you've worn in life have kept you kind of safe and financially employed right now. I like that you're working. I kind of do like seeing you in the truck. This is sometimes some of the first memories I have of seeing you going live and just yattering. Thanks for spending thanks for spending more than a half hour, because we had technical issues at the beginning.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot. Justice and I are going to finish up the show, but thank you very much for being on.
I'm going to get back on the road. See you guys later.
Have fun.
Drive safe.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll do.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And I know, there you have it. This is essentially going to be our formats in the morning. I think like AJ was talking about, Justice and I had been having our own creative lull. When we started with COVID, we were working on a pretty big project. We had some things on the go that were supposed to be starting pretty big April 20th.
And then did not.
And then did not.
Coping with the loss of a project was really tough, and moving forward from that has been empowering. And this project, I think, that we're doing, this daily sort of update, is going to be excellent for our accountability and sort of motivation moving forward.
Yeah, I think, a little bit to talk about what AJ said there and just kind of why our project exists. Justice and I do a lot of work on a daily basis, and we find that the most productive time and the time that we're kind of firing on all cylinders is nice and early in the morning. And we thought it'd be great to talk with people in the morning, hence the name, the Hypnic Jerk, instead of it being a late night show where we might kind of get lost in some of the other media that's going on and the other live streams, which I'm sometimes tuning into. This is a moment in time where we can sit and talk. Hopefully we can get people that are still at home. I, right after this, have to hit my home teaching and homeschooling with my kids and make some breakfast. So I hope that this is the way that people are going to want to maybe wake up with us and have some
I don't
chats.
see why not. We're so sweet, so cute.
Just believe Justice. All right, we're going to let you guys go. This is our first episode, and we will be back on Monday morning.
With Chris Holt.
Who?
Chris Holt.
Oh, man. That guy again.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Okay, so join us on Monday morning with Chris Holt. Take care, guys.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.